The distant rumble of plasma fire still echoes in my nightmares. I'm Teleris Vaught, Chief Medical Officer of the UNHS Mercy, or what's left of it. 3 standard weeks ago, we were just another humanitarian convoy responding to the distress call from Proxima Centauri's 3rd colony. The Drevalians had struck again, their bioweapons devastating another frontier world. We came bearing vaccines, medical supplies, and hope. I still remember Captain Koda's words during our final briefing. We're doctors, not soldiers. We fly under the Universal Medical Corps banner. Even the Drevalians respect that. How wrong we were. Our convoy of 5 ships approached the colony's orbit carefully, broadcasting our credentials on all frequencies. Standard procedure. The Colonial Defense Grid acknowledged us, and we began our descent. That's when the first shots came. Not from the surface. Not from colonial defenses, but from 3 Drevalian warships that had been hiding behind Proxima Centauri 3's larger moon. This is impossible, Lieutenant Nirali whispered beside me. We're clearly marked. They can't. The second volley hit the UNHS Comfort directly. I watched through our viewport as 2,000 medical personnel and 10,000 vaccines disappeared in a fireball. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Captain Koda shouted into the comms. Broadcast emergency protocols. Make them understand. The 3rd volley took out our engines. The UNHS Mercy began its death spiral toward the planet's atmosphere. Alarms blared as we scrambled for the escape pods. I still don't know how I survived. My pod was one of only 17 that made it to the surface. Of our convoy of 5 ships, over 10,000 medical personnel, only 83 of us survived. We watched from the colony's emergency bunker as the Drevalians methodically destroyed the wreckage of our ships, ensuring nothing survived. Not even the medical supplies. When the emergency beacon finally reached Earth 3 days later, the colony's governor sent a simple message alongside our distress call. They knew. They targeted medics deliberately. I didn't know it then, but that transmission changed everything. While we huddled in that bunker, treating colonists with whatever we could salvage, Earth was watching. The Galactic Council was watching. Every species with access to interstellar communications was watching. The Drevalians had crossed the one line no sentient species had ever dared to cross. They had deliberately fired upon clearly marked medical personnel, and humanity wasn't going to stand for it. The first indication that something had changed came 8 days after the attack. I was performing surgery on a colonist child when tremors shook the bunker. Orbital bombardment? Asked Medic Faroul, steadying the surgical tray. No, replied the colonial militia officer guarding our makeshift operating room. His eyes widened as he checked his comm unit. Those are landings. Hundreds of them. When I finally emerged from surgery hours later, the bunker was buzzing with news. Humanity had responded. Not with a diplomatic protest, not with economic sanctions, not with a targeted military strike. They had declared total war. I watched the broadcast from Admiral Lego Nyambezi, Supreme Commander of what they were now calling the Human Defense Force. For over a century, humanity has respected the boundaries of interstellar conflict, he stated, his face grim. Even in our darkest hours, we upheld the universal medical protocols. The deliberate targeting of a UNHS convoy represents a violation not just of war conventions, but of the fundamental principles that allow civilization to exist. The screen showed massive fleet movements, ships I'd never seen before, designs that had clearly been kept secret, vessels emerging from Jupiter's shipyards, from Mars' military installations, from Earth's deep ocean bases. Effective immediately, humanity is at war with the Drevalian Dominion. This is not a police action. This is not a punitive expedition. This is war with the explicit goal of regime change and accountability for war crimes. The recording shifted to show the Galactic Council chambers. The representatives of 17 species rose to their feet, even the normally pacifistic Luluvians. We stand with humanity, announced the Tellurian ambassador. The medical protocols are sacred to all. One by one, former enemies and reluctant allies pledged their support. Species that had fought humanity decades ago now offered their fleets, their resources, their soldiers. Because everyone understood, if humanitarian convoys could be targeted, no one was safe. I sat in stunned silence as Medic Faral squeezed my shoulder. "They came for us," she whispered. "All of humanity came for 83 survivors." "Not just for us," I replied. "For what we represent." That night, as I treated the wounded under the protection of 3 different species military forces, I realized the Dravalians had miscalculated catastrophically. They thought attacking medics would demoralize humanity. Instead, they had united us with every other sentient species in our sector of the galaxy. They thought they were eliminating a tactical inconvenience. Instead, they had awakened something terrible. The war machine of humanity was like nothing I'd ever witnessed. Within 3 weeks, the Human Defense Force had established a forward operating base on Proxima Centauri 3. Ships arrived hourly, military vessels, yes, but also hospital ships. Proper ones, with naval escorts and energy shields that could withstand direct hits. I found myself reassigned to the UNHS Redemption, a vessel 3 times the size of the destroyed Mercy. Its hull bore the universal medical insignia, but now that symbol was flanked by 4 heavy cruisers at all times. "The protocols haven't changed," explained Commodore Vashti Okafor during my orientation. "Medical vessels remain neutral, but neutrality is now actively protected." I toured the ship with growing amazement. The Redemption wasn't just a hospital, it was a statement. Every deck gleamed with the most advanced medical technology from a dozen worlds. Surgical suites that could automatically compensate for ship movements during combat. Regeneration tanks developed by the Tellurians. Even a wing staffed by Mrock healers, their 6-limbed forms moving gracefully between beds. "We're still here to heal," the Commodore continued. "But now we heal under the aegis of the Combined Fleet." That Combined Fleet was already striking deep into Dravalian territory. Daily reports showed their colonies being systematically isolated, their supply lines severed. Not destroyed, just cut off. "Containment before confrontation," explained Admiral Nyambezi in another broadcast. "We will offer surrender terms at each colony. Those who stand down will receive full medical assistance, regardless of species." This wasn't the vengeful humanity of our historical fiction. This was something more terrifying, methodical, precise, and absolutely committed. I treated my first Dravalian prisoner 3 days later, a young officer, badly burned when her ship was disabled. "Why are you helping me?" she asked through her translator as I applied regenerative gel to her exoskeletal plates. "Your kind should want me dead." "I'm a doctor," I replied simply. "And that's why we're fighting you." Her compound eyes blinked in confusion. "Your leaders attacked healthcare workers," I explained. "They violated the one principle that makes interstellar civilization possible, that those who heal remain untouched by war." "A tactical decision," she replied, but I could hear the uncertainty in her translated voice. "Ask yourself this," I said, finishing the treatment. "If your leaders would fire on doctors, what wouldn't they do to their own people?" I saw the first flicker of doubt in those alien eyes. It was the same doubt spreading through the Dravalian ranks as humanity's response continued, not with atrocities, but with the implacable advance of a civilization united in moral certainty. That night, as I recorded my medical logs, I realized that humanity wasn't just fighting with ships and soldiers. We were fighting with an idea that some principles transcend species, politics, and even war itself. And ideas, as the Dravalians were learning, can be more devastating than any weapon. The turning point came faster than anyone expected. I was performing my rounds on the Redemption when alarms sounded, not the red alert of combat, but the blue alert of an incoming diplomatic transmission. The shipwide screens activated, showing the grand chamber of the Dravalian Dominion. Standing before the assembled Dravalian leadership was Admiral Nyambezi, flanked by representatives from 14 allied species. "You stand accused of violating the universal medical protocols," the Admiral stated, his voice steady. "The evidence has been transmitted to every world with faster-than-light communications capability. The attack on the UNHS convoy was deliberate, premeditated, and authorized at the highest levels. The Drevalian Archon rose from his elevated seat, his ceremonial armor catching the light. We acted to prevent interference in a necessary pacification. "We have your communications logs," interrupted the Admiral, "provided by members of your own military who found their orders unconscionable." The chamber erupted in chittering sounds as the Archon turned to his generals. The translation overlay identified it as accusations of treason, of betrayal. But I was watching the faces of the lower-ranked Drevalians behind them. Their expressions, even alien as they were, showed something I recognized from my years treating trauma victims: realization. The moment when someone understands they've been serving a lie. What followed was broadcast to every ship, colony, and planet within transmission range. The Drevalian military's internal split. 3 senior generals stepped forward, removing their insignia. "The protocols are sacred," stated the first, her translator barely keeping up with her agitated speech patterns. "We cannot follow those who would violate them." Within hours, the Drevalian Dominion was in civil war. Ships turned on ships. Colonies declared independence from the central authority, all while humanity and its allies maintained their containment perimeter, allowing the internal conflict to unfold. I treated the casualties from both sides as they came in, loyalists and revolutionaries alike. The Redemption's wards filled with Drevalians who had been fighting each other just hours before, now lying side by side under the care of the very humans their leaders had tried to destroy. "We didn't know," a Drevalian commander told me as I treated his injuries. "Many of us had family in colonies that received human medical aid during the xenovirus outbreaks. When we learned what our leaders had done." He didn't need to finish. I'd seen this pattern before in smaller conflicts on distant worlds. When leaders cross moral lines that their own people hold sacred, those leaders don't remain leaders for long. The Drevalian Civil War lasted 17 days. When it ended, the architects of the attack on our convoy were in custody, not of humanity, but of their own people. As I watched the Drevalian Reformation Council formally reinstate the medical protocols as the first act of their provisional government, I finally allowed myself to weep for my lost colleagues. Today marks 1 standard year since the attack on our convoy. I stand on the observation deck of the UNHS Reconciliation, the newest and largest hospital ship in human history, looking down at the transformed landscape of the Drevalian homeworld. Where once stood military installations, now rise medical academies. Where weapon factories dominated the skyline, research hospitals now gleam in the light of their binary suns. The war that wasn't quite a war changed 2 civilizations forever. Humanity discovered unity of purpose beyond anything in our fractious history. The Drevalians discovered that some principles transcend even the most entrenched authoritarian control. Captain Coda would have appreciated the irony. The attack meant to demoralize humanity instead elevated us, not through superior firepower or tactical brilliance, but through the moral authority of our response. Dr. Vaught, a young Drevalian medical student, approaches, her translator pin gleaming on her carapace. The commemoration ceremony is beginning. Together we walk to the Great Hall where representatives from 23 species have gathered. At the center stands a monument, a simple obelisk bearing the names of every medical professional lost in the attack. 10,000 names, each illuminated from within. Admiral Nyambezi, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, addresses the assembly. 1 year ago, we witnessed the worst of what intelligent life can become. Today, we celebrate the best of what we can be together. He gestures to where former enemies now stand side by side. The attack on the medical convoy could have started a cycle of retribution that might have lasted centuries. Instead, it sparked a revolution, not just political, but moral. The Drevalian Reformation stands as proof that principles can triumph over power. As the ceremony concludes, I find myself approached by an elderly Drevalian wearing the new insignia of their Reformation Council. "You were there," he says simply. "You survived." I nod. "My granddaughter died on Proxima Centauri 3, he continues. The vaccines your convoy carried would have saved her. I start to offer condolences, but he raises a hand. She would have been your age now. Perhaps a healer, like you. I wanted you to know that many of us understood what was lost that day. Not just lives, but possibilities. As he walks away, I turn back to the viewport. Below us, the first Joint Humanitarian Medical Academy prepares to open its doors. Students from both worlds will learn side by side, their former enmity transformed into shared purpose. They say that when humanity goes to war, we fight with terrifying efficiency. But I've learned something more important. When humanity defends its principles, we fight with something even more powerful, the absolute conviction that some lines must never be crossed. The Drevalians fired on a humanitarian convoy, thinking it showed strength. Instead, it revealed the one thing that would unite all sentient species against them, the understanding that those who heal must be protected, no matter the cost. That's not just human nature. That's civilization itself. And it's worth fighting for.